Some time has passed since your experience with the storyteller Scheherazade. Enough that you are beginning to wonder if there has been truly no need for you to do anything, or if the Order has been intentionally refraining from sending you on missions. Today, though, whether it's a welcome departure from boredom, or annoying interruption in you being left to your own devices, you have been asked to meet Felix in the library in the afternoon.
Baba Yaga is practicing a new branch of magic that she hasn't really done before. She's trying to teleport small items and eventually herself.
Where is she doing this?
She'd start in her room and then perhaps go out and do it in the field if she gets good at it.
Okay.
It's more space.
James will be in the library reading.
Piper will have been checking on the two strange kids before, just checking how they're doing in school, and then when that's over, he will be at the library.
Okay. Well, two of the three of you have made your way to the library. Whenever Baba Yaga joins, your meeting can commence.
Baba Yaga pops into existence next to the group.
Felix is sitting at a table covered in books and papers. Glancing over them, they seem to contain information on mining and workers' rights. Before him sits a letter written on very expensive-looking paper. And he, at least, will slightly jump in surprise if Baba Yaga is popping into existence and try and pretend that this did not startle him at all.
Hello. You wanted to see us?
Yes, I did. Your punctuality is appreciated. Has she always done that?
Been punctual? No.
No, the other thing.
Appreciated? Also no.
And he shuffles some papers while attempting to perhaps gather himself. And then he will turn to look at the three of you and say, "There is, in England, a wealthy industrialist whose name, if you can believe it, is Bardolph Greed. He has written requesting assistance." And he gestures to the paper with an elaborate seal that is clearly the letter he is referring to. I don't suppose any of you are aware of his, existence?
Does he have a lot of money?
He has more money than one could possibly spend in a lifetime.
Then what is he worried about?
He is currently... Well, I wouldn't say he exactly runs the city, not in an official sense. He does run the city in a manner of speaking, but he has not been placed in control of it. He is situated in Whitehaven. It was a very small town until not long ago when Mr. Greed moved in. He very quickly has expanded it into a very large, very industrial city. And now with that came He claims inevitable and clearly false accusations of worker exploitation. This, in turn, led to the rise of an anarchist movement who are known as... And he squints at the letter as though he wants to make sure this is correct. Known as the Pigheads.
I see.
He says that they wear rather grotesque-looking pig masks on their... Anyway. They oppose him, and he insists that there is something wrong. He's specified unholy. I believe he thought that would perhaps catch our attention. About this group, since after they showed up, there have been disappearances, acts of violence, and sabotage. Rumors of strange figures at night, and unexplained noises from the mine.
Well, so far this sounds more of a policing matter.
You are not incorrect.
I am not sure how I feel about going around union busting.
Well, truth be told, the reason I am entertaining this request at all is, while I do not know the three of you particularly well, something I am aware of is that your dealings with the people you have come across have always seemed fair. My hope is that if you investigate this request, even if there is nothing truly out of the ordinary, perhaps there is something that can be done for the workers. It is not only Mr. Greed's enterprise that is being harmed. His employees are being injured, kidnapped, murdered.
And do we know that Mr. Green himself is not the one doing it, or at least his lackeys?
Greed.
Is that not what I said?
I thought you said green.
He is green with greed.
We have not yet investigated. I can be sure of nothing. It would seem rather odd that he would write for assistance if he was the one at fault.
That is what the pastor did.
Oh, yes, sorry. I did not handle that matter directly, but you are correct. So, what say you?
We will investigate. We haven't had a lot going on recently. I think it would do some good for all of us to go visit England.
And he looks to the other two.
I'm in agreement. It'd be nice to visit home again.
Piper says, "Let me check my agenda." And he takes out a notebook and he's flipping through it, and it's largely blank. And he sits there pondering, can he write something in?
Doesn't want to go to England?
It will be an imposition, but... And he flicks between two blank pages. I believe I can squeeze you in.
And he almost smiles. Thank you. All right, is there anything else you need from me before you leave?
Money?
I can certainly arrange that for any expenses you may incur.
A castle?
That would be more difficult.
But not impossible. And he hands over a letter. These are our expenses from the last mission. Itemized. With receipts where applicable.
And he nods, takes them. Very good.
Yes, no. Everything that's on that receipt was totally from the last adventure.
Shut up, baby Yaga.
I am pleased you viewed your mission as an adventure, I suppose. Very well then. If there is nothing further. And he turns back to his books.
Well, I suppose we should get going then. And Baba Yaga disappears.
Having used all of her soma before we've even arrived at the adventure.
Yes. She can sleep on the trip. And all right. You can leave whenever you are ready to leave. If there's anything you want to do before that, go for it.
He'll get his stuff and then head down to the carriage
Okay?
for the trip to the boat, since
You're going to
being
England.
somewhat of an island.
What took you so long?
Are we there yet?
Once upon a time, a child saved the world of fairy tales. His reward was a wish. The one who plots in the shadows saw an opportunity to tarnish the child's heart, whispering words of corruption to him. The child asked the king of fairy tales to grant the villains, accursed for centuries, a new life. This was to be their chance for redemption. This was how the villains became good. But any light needs a shadow, and in turn, the heroes became evil. At that moment, all fairy tales were shattered. Eventually, as much as some of you may have wished it was sooner, you arrive in Whitehaven. It is hard to imagine that it used to be a small, quiet town. The air is hazy with smoke and ash from the factories that run constantly. Townspeople hurry through the streets to ensure they are on time for their shifts. You have little time to take in the city before you are hurried along to meet Bardolph Greed. He is in his mansion, an extravagant testament to his wealth, and the dining room you are shown to is no exception. Among crystal glasses and golden cutlery, you find the Industrialist, a plump man in his 70s. A dozen guards line the walls of the room, but do not move as you enter.
Hello, Governor.
Welcome to my... Well, it's not very humble, is it? My home. Wine? Tobacco? I have the best.
If you're offering, I'll have a glass.
And he will pour a glass of wine from a crystal decanter and push it across the table.
James will pick it up.
So, you're here to fix my problem.
Well, that depends.
On?
We deal in the mysteries of the unknown. This is still a possible merely legal matter, of which your constabulary would be more outfitted for.
Constabulary? What, them? No. Those aren't lawmen. That's my private mercenary guard. This town was too little to have any such thing, nor has it added one since it grew.
We will, however, investigate, as the church has asked us to do so.
Yes, yes, of course. So, what do you need to know? I'm a very busy man, as I'm sure you're aware, so I'd like to get you on your way as soon as possible.
Then it would be in your interest to be clear. What has been going on?
I suppose the question is where to start, since I moved here, or more recently?
I think we do not have to start at the beginning. You were born, you grew up.
Yes, but I only moved here a few years ago.
And did you inherit from such an early time these issues?
I could not say for certain, but perhaps the seeds of them. I poured a lot of money into this town. I made it what it is today. I have employed, well, all of the townspeople. Most of them had no real objection to my moving in. There was one family who felt otherwise.
Why?
This town used to be not even a dot on the map. It was so tiny you could hardly say anyone led it. But if anyone did, I suppose it was the Brown family. They owned the apple orchard that, before we had the factories and the mine, was the only real employment opportunity in town. They object to my methods.
Ah,
They begged the townspeople not to work in the factories. No, not to give in to industrialism. No, stick with their country bumpkin ways, I suppose. But in the end, I won, because I always do. And they, too, worked for me. Well, 2 of them still do. The other is dead.
ah. How did they become deceased?
The Brown family, there's 3 brothers. Well, I suppose there's their mother, too, but she's too old to work, so I don't tend to consider her. Arthur, the oldest brother, he worked in the mine. Not too long ago, there was an incident, and he's dead.
An accident? A quarrel? A
Well, if
cruel
you're
twist
going
of
to
fate?
suggest, if you're trying to suggest that it was murder, firstly, he looks to a man sitting to his right, scribbling away on some paper. My lawyer might have something to say about that. And secondly, the man was a thorn in my side, true, but I would hardly have him killed by collapsing a large section of my mine and killing several workers.
Piper will point to the lawyer. You have something to say. Were you the murderer?
He looks up, looks slightly confused, and looks to Bardolph Greed, who gestures to him to return to what he was doing, and he turns back to his paper. William here certainly did not kill half of my miners. I would hardly still be employing him if he had.
Did the mine collapse due to neglecting safety standards?
I shouldn't think so. Edward Wright runs the mine, and he's a good, hard-working man.
So, is the cause of the mine collapse unknown then?
I certainly don't know what caused it. There are risks to every business.
And how has the remaining two brothers taken the loss of the tip of the triangle?
They're certainly not happy about it. The middle brother, he runs the slaughterhouse in town, and the younger one is something of a lazy oaf, a layabout. He does nothing, so far as I can tell.
Then he is probably not the cause of your misfortune, then. It would take too much effort.
Well, I would agree with you on that. No. What has been going on recently is criminals have been wandering through the city. Whether through the back streets or at night, they may wander through the main thoroughfare for all I know. But they are kidnapping or injuring the factory workers, not the miners, not those who work in the slaughterhouse, just the factory workers.
Why?
Well, if I knew, I would have done something about it, wouldn't I?
I do not know. That's what we are trying to ascertain.
These people wear horrible masks and do not seem to speak. There is something wrong with them.
And what evidence is there to lead to their connection to the supernatural?
Well, I believe that's your job to find out, isn't it?
Well, you obviously suspect something for them to not be normal. Anyone can wear a mask. There has to be something that makes you feel that they are not altogether natural.
The townspeople whisper about... Look. Like I said, this was a small country town, and so those living here are largely idiotic. But from what they claim, the criminals can... well, change, They become stronger as they fight. I don't know. You would have to ask them. I am not paid to deal with such things.
I see.
Speaking of, I have invested a great deal into this town. I have built the factories, the slaughterhouse. I have created the mines. I have put in a great deal of very expensive equipment. Now, the townspeople are, I suppose, an investment of sorts themselves, but they are much easier to replace. Do you take my meaning?
Not very well.
In your investigation, I would ask that you put productivity and property above all else.
Like you, I'm not paid to worry about such things.
And he grimaces slightly.
If we learn something, we'll be in touch. The church thanks you for your time. And he makes the sign of the cross. Go with God. And he
sort
leaves.
of waves a hand and continues drinking his very expensive wine.
James will finish his glass and walk out as well.
The first impression you got upon entering the city holds true. It is dreary and grimy, and productivity is valued over aesthetic or even safe building practices. The crowds bustling to and from work include children and the elderly. No one capable of work is exempt, and those not capable are nowhere to be seen. You can see a woman standing on a street corner. Slightly further away is a group of people you assume are perhaps finishing a shift, as they don't seem to be in any particular hurry. But everyone else you see seems to be rushing quickly by.
I am not in love with your nation in this new industrial age of progress, James. It lacks a certain artistic subtlety. Would anyone take offense if I take my time and let whatever is doing this play itself out a little bit more?
I would normally agree with you if it was targeting Mr. Greed himself. However, it is targeting the workers, who are relatively innocent in this, as far as I can tell.
And Piper grimaces.
In this area, there is still a woman on a street corner. There is a small group of townspeople of some sort, and farther down the road, you can see what looks to be a factory area of some kind.
I do not think in the annals of the Order's adventures the case of the misplaced bacon is going to exactly resonate as one of the more heroic. And Piper will walk to the woman.
All right. She is not, you think, one of the factory workers. She is clearly poor, just like everyone else here is, but she has clearly put some effort into her appearance. And she has a ribbon in her hair that you think she might have saved up a great deal of money to have something nice. And she will smile as you approach.
And he will tip his hat. My good lady, I am from across the sea, from the church.
And she, as you say this, looks delighted. And she says, We never get, oh my goodness. You don't know how. Well, I've always wanted to travel, and we never get anyone around here from, well, not around here.
We are all from different places, although James is indeed one of your countrymen. The church has sent us in search of 2 little pigs, it seems. There's been some difficulty in the town of late.
That there has?
Mr. Greed. I have trouble saying his name with a straight face, I must admit. Is particularly uncooperative, although he wants the issue resolved. However, my companion, the short one, is concerned for the populace of this town and would like us to resolve it as quickly as possible. Mr. Greed has one agenda, however, and that is coin in his pocket. This leads him to be an untrustworthy source of information, and the workers, i.e. the people of this town, are the least of his concern.
Well, I don't know how much as I could tell you since I don't work for Mr. Greed.
That would be smart, I think.
That's what Clarence tells me, but it's not easy to make a living in this town if you don't work for the factories.
That I can also appreciate. I understand that the rumors of the situation are considered slightly heretical. It goes against the natural order of what the church teaches, and many might be concerned of getting into trouble. I would like you to tell me the truth, but have no fear of any form of reprimand from the church in this. We are sent to find cause and put an end to it.
And she considers, and she says, there are those as say there's something not right, but Clarence always tells me not to worry about it. He says a lot of things, though, and, well, to tell the truth, sir, I don't know that there's much as I can do for you. I don't know much, and seeing as how you're from the church, I doubt you'd be wanting to make use of my services, so I just don't know as I could help.
You have a unique position. I'm sure you've heard things in your travels.
Well, there's something going on in town, that's plain, but to tell the truth, I just want to leave. Well, Clarence always said he'd take me away from this place, but I don't think he's going to.
Who is Clarence?
Well, we've been friends since we were little, but I mean, he's nice, but I know he wouldn't leave his family.
Would Clarence happen by chance to be a colour?
What do you... Oh, yes, Clarence Brown. That's right. A color, I suppose.
So we've got green and brown.
We have green and brown. Clarence wouldn't happen to have a reputation of being something of misdirected dreams, perhaps?
Well, I don't know that he has any particular dreams, per se. I mean, his mother's always honored him to make something of himself like his brothers did. Well, one of his brothers did more than the other, I suppose. He doesn't really seem interested in doing much, though. You can find him at the orchard most days. That's where, well, his family used to run the orchard, but now it's, well, mostly just people that can't work or don't want to work. They stay there.
I see. Why?
'Cause they got nowhere else to go. All the lodging houses in town are for people who work. If you work, you get a bed, and there's cafeterias where you can get food. If you don't work, you don't.
Right. Most helpful.
She looks a bit hesitant, but smiles slightly, and she says, "It really is very nice to talk to people that aren't from here."
Having met some, notwithstanding yourself, I can understand your feelings.
And what do you do for work?
And she looks at Baba Yaga and then sort of looks desperately back at the two adults and does not know what to say.
Companionship.
Like, a friend? You can just be friends with people and make money? Maybe I should be a companion.
I don't think that's...
Is the little one having me on? She can't be that daft.
Baba Yaga is a rare individual. Thank you, milady. And he tips his hat to her.
Then she
And-
nods.
Walks away from Baba Yaga before he feels compelled to kill her.
And the group that was sort of talking farther off have moved. Headed in the direction of what you think is the factory area. And they're now all over there. Yes, you can see an area of factories farther down the street. You have been told of an orchard, and you have heard of a slaughterhouse and a mine. These are all the things you've heard of. But you can see factories.
I would have cherished the Hatter's view on these factories. However, he's not here. I think we should talk to this Clarence. I have long suspected in misdirection. Vigilantes who no one would suspect because they are the idle rich, or in this case, everybody overlooks him because he's a miscreant layabout. But is he? That was a question. Have the two of you considered anything about what we are doing here?
I think factory would not be a bad place to start.
I want to check out the mine as well, but I think the factory is a good start. Because that's where the disappearances would happen.
The factories are, at the very least, very close by. You can see them, so you don't have to search for them. Are you heading to the factories?
Lead on.
The factory buildings were clearly constructed quickly and not very well. People being able to get right to work being viewed as more important than quality craftsmanship. The factories are loud and produce thick fumes. Tired-looking townspeople rush in, while even more tired-looking people slowly trickle out. There are several people around. The ones who are on their way to work you feel would probably not stop to speak to you, but any of those who are on their way out, you'd have better luck.
Do you mind if we have a moment with you? James will try to get one of them.
And two young-looking men will stop and look at you and say, "I suppose not. Headed home, but what you need?"
We're here on behalf of the church to investigate the disappearance. Do you perhaps know anything about them?
They got the church to look into. And the other one says, "If anyone wants to look into it, don't discourage them." I suppose... What do you want to know?
Did you know any of the people who went missing?
Yeah, couple, I mean. Everyone works. Well, I say everyone works at the factory. That's not true. In fact, you wouldn't think it, but what everyone really wants to do is work at the slaughterhouse.
Why is that?
Better shifts. A lot more reasonable. Better pay, they say, but Frank Brown, he runs the slaughterhouse, and, well, no one knows how he chooses who works there, but he handpicks everyone. I mean, you can go to him and beg on your knees to please let you work in the slaughterhouse because the factory's breaking your back, and he'll look in your eyes and say no. And then someone else, who's not even asked, gets pulled right off the street. Get told they're gonna start tomorrow. That's one reason. The other is, well, no one who works at the slaughterhouse is going missing.
Yes, we were told about that. It seems only people who worked in the factory.
And the other man chimes in and says, I mean, he says he's worried and he'd rather work at the slaughterhouse, but I don't think he has much to worry about. I mean, did you become a top worker when I wasn't looking, Lucas? And the other man laughs a little bit and says, I know they say it's only the best workers getting taken, but you never know.
How does it define hardest working?
The ones who had the best productivity levels, I guess. They're the ones that seem to get injured or go missing.
Interesting.
What were the circumstances around the injuries that they received?
Got attacked. In the back streets, usually, on their way home.
Kind of like you two are now.
Well, we're not taking the back streets, miss.
Why would someone take the back streets?
Faster, more time to sleep before your next shift, or go the long way round, safer. Although I have to admit, some days, tempting. A little bit extra sleep, wouldn't that be nice?
It's smart of you.
Yeah, I guess, but the shifts here are, well, see how much longer I can keep at it before I give up and go live in the orchard.
Have you thought about living somewhere else?
Can't. Don't have enough money to move.
Are you able to save money in your current job?
No. I mean, you get paid, but some of your pay goes to your lodgings and your food. And then everything else, well, there's some left over, but not as so much as to save, I wouldn't say.
Do you feel trapped here?
Well, that's an interesting question. I suppose, but I don't know that it's more than I'd feel trapped anywhere else, you know? It's a job, and I'm happy to have it, but, well, sometimes it's a bit much.
Those were all my questions.
I can't imagine working. Seems like hell.
I can't imagine you working either.
Well, if you want a job, I'm sure they'll hire you. And you have seen children Baba Yaga's age or younger heading into the factories. Well, was there anything else, or...
You're free to carry on. I appreciate you stopping.
Not a problem. Well, good night. Or, I suppose it's afternoon, but I'm going to sleep.
And Piper's heading for the office.
And it's easy enough to make your way into one of the factories. It's not as though they're really checking people at the door, as people just come in and out for their shifts as needed. So you are very easily able to make your way into the factory, and the inside is just as dreary and shoddily made as the outside made it seem it would be.
And he will grab one of the nearest plebs. I am looking for the manager of this place. Can you point him out to me, good sir?
Yep, he seems a little bit intimidated to have been suddenly grabbed by someone who seems a lot fancier than most people around here, and maybe odder. And he'll gesture to a room with a closed door and say, that's the manager's office, sir.
Thank you. And he lets go and walks towards there, brushing his hand of the soot of the lower pleb. And he opens the door and just walks in.
And there is a man seated at a desk, scribbling away furiously at a large stack of paperwork, and he looks up at you and says, what can I do for you? You don't look exactly as though you want to apply.
I don't. And he snaps a card and hands it across to him.
Okay, and he will look at it and sort of look puzzled at it and say, all right. Sorry. What is it I can do for you?
Your boss, Mr. Greed, has gone and done something rather rash. He has indeed asked for the church's assistant in the events that have pertaining to this here town of yours. We, myself and my two companions, who are outside at this moment, have been sent to look into things. We are from a section of the Vatican that was created by the Pope himself. If this makes you just a little bit uneasy that we are here, let me put your mind at ease. It should. Now, we have been told by Mr. Greed, as well as some of the workers, that it is only the factory workers that have been targeted by these ruffians, which means that they are known to be working for the factories. The finger has very much been pointed at someone who knows who would be working here. And that someone could well be you.
And he seems like he's trying to catch up, because we had the Vatican and the Pope, and then Mr. Greed sent for you, and he's sort of still figuring everything out in his own brain, and he says, I mean, pretty much anyone in the town knows who works where. It's not like it's a secret.
They have relied very heavily on being uneducated. They have very much put the consequences of such on someone more like yourself.
He doesn't seem opposed to providing you with information. He just seems unsure as to what you need. And he says, look, it's not like, I mean, I suppose there's records of sort. I mean, if people work here, we get them to sign a paper, but most of them can't really sign. They just sort of put an X next to their name, but it's not as though we keep files on everyone. I mean, anyone who works in town knows who works where, because the factory workers live in the factory workers' lodgings, and the mine workers, I mean, it's not hard to tell.
No, but the quality of ingenuity amongst the plebs that walk the cobblestones outside is not always particularly high. Good-natured though they may be, for someone to have been conducting such an enterprise as has been disrupting your operations, roughing up your workers, kidnapping and so forth, requires a certain level of organization, ingenuity, and drive, which is somewhat above your mere, I know he works there, mate.
Well, what would I want to do any of that for?
I don't know.
I lose workers, I lose money.
Who else?
If I knew, if any of us as works for Mr. Greed knew who was doing this, well, then we would have told him.
This is the talk of the town. There is no way that all of this collective rumblings of rumors have not come up with some theories.
Theories? Sure, some have said that they think it's other factory workers. I don't really subscribe to that one myself, but some of them say some of my workers are trying to take out the top workers so that they, well, someone said something rather ridiculous, that they could get more hours. That's not really what anyone wants. Mr. Greed wouldn't want his workers down. I don't want my workers down. I don't know who would.
If such a thing was to be considered, it is not unfeasible that the ruffians would be of the lower order of things. But it would take someone of some level of forceful nature or charisma to be the ring leader. Is there anyone that you would think could fit that position?
The only ones in town as run anything, well, Mr. Greed runs everything. I guess I run this factory. And, Frank Brown runs the slaughterhouse. And Edward Wright, he oversees the mine. And that's it.
Is there any animosity between the mine and the factories?
No.
Do the miners blame the factories for the collapse that killed some of them?
Not as I've heard. Really, it's just who can... The slaughterhouse, they only employ who Frank Brown wants to employ. The mine, they employ anyone who's strong enough to... Well, mine and me, I get the rest. Anyone else who can stand and hold things, and pretty much everyone. We've got children, old folks. If they can do anything, we've probably got them.
I see.
I don't see as how they'd blame, well, this lot.
Has it only been men that have been taken?
Anyone.
Children? Old women as well?
If they're good
Not
at
in
their...
work. No, not in their work. By these pig mask-wearing creatures
If
of
they're
the
good
night.
at their job, they're a target, it seems. So if there's a kid who's very good at textile work, then sure.
So age, gender has played no part.
No, just if they're good at the job.
Interesting. Well, thank you, sir, for your time.
And he nods, still looking a little confused.
And Piper will leave, looking to see where the other two went to or failed to go to, or anywhere in between.
Where are they, the other two?
Waiting outside, Baba Yaga turns to James. He... awful long time in there.
Yeah, but he knows what he's doing.
I think I'm gonna go in and talk to someone in there. In the factory. She's got a bag, a leather satchel.
Okay.
On a belt around her waist. It's got a dagger in there as well.
When Baba Yaga walks onto the factory floor, a worker rather unceremoniously dumps a large pile of fabric strips into her arms and says, "Get those to the bagging area. Sharp-like."
Okay. Baba Yaga will carry them into the factory.
No one prevents her from walking farther into the factory with an armful of fabric.
James will look very amused.
Where did he say this was going? Fabric room?
James will point over to the loading bay, because that's where he said, right?
You can see over in sort of the corner of the room, there are other children who are collecting what seems like cut-off scraps of fabric and placing them in large bags. And I don't know if Baba Yaga is aware that there is such a thing as a rag and bone shop, but if you did know, you could extrapolate that they are probably going to sell the cut-off of fabric to such a place.
Once James points out the other children, she's gonna turn to him. Now, don't scare them off. I'm gonna try and talk to them. And she will walk over to the children and dump the scrap clothing into whatever bin they're using to store it.
They're basically packing... They're just stuffing as many fabric scraps as they can get into these big sacks, and other children are sweeping more scraps off the factory floor, and then those are being collected and added to the bags.
Hello there.
Hello, says one of the kids, who then proceeds to continue doing their job because they are on the clock.
Sorry, I'm new here.
All right, what you want me to do about it?
What is it you're doing here?
Look, you just take these and put them in the bag. It's easy. Just get going. They'll yell if we're not quick enough.
But aren't you worried if you're too productive? You might get taken.
Look, can you just... If you're not gonna help, can you go tell them to send you somewhere else?
Alright, well, here you go. And she'll dump the fabric into the area where they're putting it into the bags.
Okay. And they will continue stuffing fabric scraps into bags.
Baba Yaga will return to James.
James will still be there.
It's hard to tell if they are scared more of their supervisor or of being taken. They didn't seem to want to talk about it.
Neither of those is a good outcome. There's not much we can do about it, right? Where's Piper?
Is that him there, walking down the stairs?
Is it?
And he will walk over.
Okay.
Has the concept of a union been invented yet?
A marriage? Possibly, yes. Why? Have you found someone?
No. I'm just worried about all the people working here. They don't seem to be doing very well.
I don't think they are designed to. However, there is not a great deal of locales. The manager of the slaughterhouse is called Frank. We have Clarence, and I suspect there is an Edward. There is no animosity that the manager is aware of between the mine and the factory work. The targets have had no restrictions to age or sex. They do not think it is a interdepartmental rivalry. We can check out the mine if you so wish. I, however, feel we are somewhere connected to Clarence and the slaughterhouse.
I was thinking something similar.
Although I am not discounting the mother.
The mother?
We have not met her. They've said she is old and decrepit, but we have also learned that old, decrepit women can be very angry witches. The loss of her son is a strong motive for revenge. There is no evidence of that at the moment. It's just a thought based on some of our previous endeavors.
When you say old decrepit woman, is that a dig at me?
No, you're a child.
I will turn you into a newt.
Yes, so you said, but I did get better. I did in fact find in one of the annuals reference to Baba Yaga being 400 years old. However, it did appear to be written in pencil and did not match the ink of the surrounding verses. I am questioning its validity.
I don't know what you could possibly be talking about.
I am sure. So, where to next on our travels? I do not believe that we're going to run into any of these pig-faced walking bacon creatures during the day, however, but we can certainly question more of the locals.
I would suggest either the slaughterhouse or the orchard. Why did Mr. Greed suspect the Browns?
Because they did not work for him, they were opposed to his progress. And they just generally don't like him very much.
Well, perhaps we'll get along well with them then.
I am not altogether against what they're doing, except for, yes, attacking the locals. Hurting Mr. Greed is not exactly a unworthy sport, I think.
I do love a good slaughterhouse.
You're very inconsistent, Baba Yaga. Well, lead on.
Yaga will pull over a passerby and say, "Can you point us in the direction of the slaughterhouse?"
Follow the smell.
Yeah, they're sort of thinking as much, but they will gesture off down a road, and as you walk farther down that road, you do indeed smell a very strong odor of perhaps blood, perhaps other things. It's not very pleasant, whatever it is.
Murder. Bloody murder.
Baba Yaga has lost her mind. Send help.